All right. I see that it is now 7 o'clock, so we will open the meeting number 85 of the Amateur Radio Club of Columbia County. Let me admit folks. Again, meeting number 85, getting underway. We have a lot to do tonight. We have a good presentation, so I'm going to try to somewhat briskly move through the business, but we will, any item that we need to attend to, we'll cover it. I'm gonna mute all of the microphones for now. You will be able to unmute yourself as needed, but this way. All right. Devon, if you would do the invocation, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, let's pray. Father God, again, thank you for this beautiful weather you've given us today and all our business are coming to this point in time, Lord, even during these situations that are happening around the world in 2020. Bless our time together, our fellowship together, and this technology. Keep it going, Father, please. Put in some extra work for it so it's not inconvenience. In your name, Jesus, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Devon. Appreciate it. Okay, as I said, we've got a pretty decent agenda going tonight, but the highlight of the evening will be Pete giving us a presentation. I dabbled a little bit at 160 meters last year, but it was dabbling. It was not a serious effort, so I'm looking forward to this. Probably the biggest things that we're going to be covering are the Board of Directors nominations for the election that's coming up next month. Okay, we're going to go through and do some welcomes and introductions here as we normally do. Bill, if I could ask you to kind of watch the Facebook folks and introduce them. In fact, we'll go ahead and start with the folks on Facebook first, if you're able to see them.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. You've got Nicholas. You'll see a call sign there. Joseph. Rachel, and I think those are the three that I see in the comment section at the moment.
Okay. Facebook, you know, there's a delay. It's probably about 15 to 20 seconds between what we're doing live on Zoom and what you're seeing there. So I'm going to go ahead through and we will introduce all the folks that are here on the Zoom meeting. Then we'll come back around and I'll ask Bill. So if you just do a quick introduction and say hello, if you haven't already, and then we'll follow up to see if there are any other introductions. So again, I'll ask your indulgence because every time you speak, the order changes. So I'm going to try to keep up with who I've already called, but I'll probably fail. Ray, I see you first on the list.
Oh, it's KJ4HZ. Good evening, everyone.
Okay. Bill.
Good evening. This is Bill Clark, WK4F.
Okay. Pete and Carmen.
K10IQ, Pete, and Carmen's on the phone in the other room.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Yep, they're moving around. This will be fun. I have David next.
David Vine.
Okay. Thank you, David. And I have David Corsilia next.
Good evening, WA6TWF, David and Evans.
Thanks, David. Devon.
Good evening, all the way from Johnston, South Carolina, KM4PHT, Devon.
All right, Devon, you're our DX for the evening. Okay, let's see. They all moved. Jim. You're muted, Jim.
Push the mic, Jim.
There you go. I had the screen minimized. Technical details here. I guess I should ask her to make me a little smarter. Jim, KV4YA, also got Cindy, KM4DBA, and Cameron, KM4DBB.
Great. Hey, Cindy. Hey, Cameron. Let's see. Rick and Judy.
Hi, this is Rick, NO3K, and
Judy, K1UTE.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you attending this evening. Okay, Mark.
This is Mark AA1WO. Howdy.
Thank you, Mark. Oh boy. Samantha.
Hey, it's Samantha KM4NSF.
Thank you, Sam. Stephen.
Hey, this is Steven, KN4RVU.
Okay. Susan.
Hey, it's Susan, Whiskey Alpha Zero Bravo, and Chuck.
Kilo November 4 Echo Papa Golf.
Hello, Susan and Chuck. Thank you for joining us. Walter.
Good evening, everyone. Walter, W4EFS.
Okay. I have another Stephen just with video. Where did my chat room go? Might be on there. Okay, and I have a phone 706 ending in 2493. I think that might be Steve, maybe. Okay, 2 mystery attendees. I'll sort that out. Bill, anyone else on Facebook Live?
I don't see anybody new. Let's see. Rachel posted her call sign KO4HLC, and Joseph posted his call sign KK4RHJ.
Great. I know you'll hear this 20 seconds from now, but welcome. We appreciate you joining our meeting this evening. Let's see, everybody tonight is a special guest, so we appreciate you joining the meeting. All right, with that, I'll move on to membership applications. I did receive one membership application and actually already received the payment for Derek McClure, Kilo Charlie 4 Echo Lima Oscar. He is a general class ham in Martinez. His interests are HF 2 meters, public service, field day, and contesting. So he has applied for membership with the club. What is the pleasure of the membership here? Would anybody make a motion to accept Derek?
I'll make a motion.
Is that Mark?
Yep.
Okay. A second?
I'll second it, as long as he understands that public service includes net control.
Okay, we'll make sure he's aware of it. Is there any discussion regarding accepting Derek for membership into the ARCCC? Are there any opposed to accepting Derek? Hearing no opposition, we will welcome Derek McClure, KC4ELO, as a member of the Amateur Radio Club of Columbia County. I haven't received any others, or any of the other board members are aware of any applications we should consider. I'll take that as a no. Okay. Well, once again, we don't get to have a live swap table, but we do have our swap sale or trade page. There are a couple things there. There's the IC 7600 kit. That's, I think, the last remaining item from our club property sale. I tried to move it at an incredible price at the ARCA swap meet, but nobody was biting on it there. But there's also an amp there. So there's like a ready-made QRO station there in our swap pages. Anyone on the Zoom call have anything that they would like to mention to the membership for sale?
I have a couple of the equipment racks. If anyone's interested, they're about 5.5 feet tall. They were used in commercial for a while. They have, it's enclosed. It has a front door and a back door. I think I got enough pieces for locks if they want to even lock it. It's got 4 nice meters on the top. I'm not sure how useful the meters are. I think one reads about 3 kilovolts. So I don't know how, if that's very useful these days, but if anybody's interested in it, it's free of charge.
Oh, well, the price is right, everyone. If anybody's interested in that, contact Walter. For the price of hauling it away, it sounds like.
Yes, sir. That's right.
This is Rick McKnight.
Go ahead, Rick.
N03K. I have a Yaesu 847 satellite earth station. If somebody might be interested, it has ceramic filters and has the various connectors, and I can assist in software if they're interested in satellite, in free satellite tracking software for computer control and Doppler.
Okay. I will probably reach out to both of you with an email, and we'll capture that, and I'll put it on the swap seller trade page if you'd like. Okay. Wow. Have a little activity on the virtual swap table today. Thanks, gentlemen. Anyone else before we move on? And I see that Derek is on with us on Facebook Live. Derek, welcome to the club, and thank you for applying for membership. We're happy to have you. Okay, just a little quick reminder, holiday season coming up. I know last time we made about $46 last quarter. We should be getting pretty close, I think, to another bit of money coming in from Amazon Smile. It's like free money coming into the club. So I know we do have several members who are using it. If you would like to join it, you go to smile.amazon.com. It does not cost you any extra, but they donate a small percentage of the amount, from based on your amount of purchase. So we appreciate it. All right. I see that Steve is on here now, but I don't know if he has audio. Steve, are you able to connect in audio? Okay, well, pretty much everything we need to know is right up there on the screen. Our total in our accounts now, thanks to quite a bit of money that was raised from the club property sale, we're up at almost $7,500 total in our club accounts, minus what the repeater committee has obligated for work on the Bel Air Road repeater. That leaves us about $4,500 available for operations. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the Treasury report for this month?
Just a quick question of understanding.
Okay.
I see that there's a PayPal account and a pending transfer for PayPal account. Does that mean it's in the PayPal account and will be transferred to the bank account called PayPal?
It's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
I don't understand. That's why I asked.
Yeah. But I can try to get the answer from Steve offline and get that to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Vaughn.
Okay.
Second it, Pete.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. Any further discussion about the treasurer's report? Is there any opposition to accepting the treasurer's report? Okay, we will accept it. Next is the secretary's report. It is posted up on the website. I know that the September one is there. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. If not, definitely take some time to do that. We will get the report for this month posted up in a few days, along with the video. Our recordings, we put them on YouTube, and then we put the link on the page. So do I have a motion to accept the secretary's report?
Make a motion. This is Bill.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
second? Is that Rick?
Yes.
Thanks, Rick. All right. Any discussion regarding the Secretary's report? Is there any opposition to accepting the Secretary's report? Okay, hearing none, we will accept it. Thank you, everyone. That covers our reports for the evening. Just a reminder, there's really pretty much every Hamfest that I'm aware of has been canceled for the year, except Amateur Radio Club of Augusta, which came through with the swap meet for the year. And it was, I think, very well attended. It was good for us because we cleared out a lot of stuff, but definitely shout out to our colleague club in the CSRA for doing that. Yes, go ahead, David.
Just a quick comment. Savannah had a fairly nice one. It wasn't big, you know, maybe 20, 25 sellers, but it was nice.
Okay, so they are out there. You just have to kind of look around for them, I guess. Okay, we will have a VE test session on Saturday the 14th. I got confirmation from the EOC that we will be able to use the EOC for that. And of course, we started talking about Winter Field Day. We will probably talk about it a little bit more later in the meeting. And then, of course, our November election, very important because we actually do tonight. We will settle the slate for the election, but at our November meeting is where we actually vote the board of directors in. And kind of TBD is whether we're going to do a holiday party and an actual ceremony for our awards. Okay. Old business. We do still have permission from the county to schedule a work day to install additional conduit for the repeater. That just needs to be scheduled and happen. On our storage, we have sold everything except the IC 7600 kit. Sometime before the end of this week, I will go out to the storage shed. We're retaining one shelf of items. So we have coax, we have a couple of radio kits that we're going to hold on to, and some other odds and ends like our pop-up canopy. Basically, we will have enough to equip a 2 alpha field day event. Really minus the probably the antennas. And we may be looking for some folks that may be able to kind of store 1 or 2 of those items, but we'll reach out with what we need. I'll bring it all here and then figure out what I can store properly. Any questions about either of those items before I move forward?
Can I ask a real quick question? I was asked by an interested party if there might be any courses prior to the test planned either by our club or by ARCC, the Amateur Radio Club of Augusta.
We do not currently have anything planned before November 14th. We really have put off doing a lot of that because inability to find locations to do stuff like that. And we typically the classes that our club have held have usually been multi-night events that are a little more in depth, but can certainly kind of push that around to see if anyone else is planning. Ray, are you aware of anything from Augusta like that?
No, Dan, not only we don't have anything planned, the 7 years I've been in the club, we've never had a class. So
Okay.
That's a pretty honest answer.
Rick, potentially, I mean, maybe, I don't know if we could do a formal class, but we certainly might be able to do an Elmer matchup or something.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. As mentioned, we did have a proposal approved by both. Well, I think we actually did approved an exploration of doing a combined ARCA, ARCCC Winter Field Day event. We do have representatives named for both clubs, all of whom I think would do a great job. So I think actually we need to probably make a vote on whether this club would actually support doing a joint winter field day with Amateur Radio Club of Augusta. And as Jim mentioned prior to the meeting, we have a request from the Girl Scouts to help them with a merit badge class, and in exchange we'll get a discount, possibly free use of Camp Tanglewood. So, are there any discussion or a motion about Winter Field Day?
I'll make a motion, Dan, that we conduct a joint winter field day event between the two clubs.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Yeah, Dan, I just want to put one thing out. I didn't catch part of what you were saying, but I want to make sure it was clear. The scout leader is going to request a discount or free usage, but obviously there's no guarantee they'll come through with that. But
understand, and I think even if they don't, I believe it. Randall, I thought I saw Randall come on here, but I believe it was $100 for the day last time. So we're not, as you saw in the treasury, we're not as cash poor as we were.
It's not a $100 is not a taxing thing. I just want to make sure nobody was disappointed if it didn't happen to come through. I think it will, but just want to clarify.
Another thing, Dan, whatever it is, the expenses would be shared by both clubs, and we're in pretty good shape as well. So,
okay,
that's the idea of a joint venture.
That is a good point. Thanks, Ray. So we have a motion and a second to conduct a joint winter field day, Amateur Radio Club of Augusta and Amateur Radio Club of Columbia County. Is there any more discussion or question on that? Is there any opposition to doing this? You can put it in the chat if you don't want to say it. Okay, hearing no opposition, we will have our field day committees get together and put us together a wonderful event. Thank you. Thanks, David, and thanks, Casper. Okay, so time is kind of running out on this one about whether we want to do a Christmas party this year. Normally, we do not hold a December meeting, and we do our Christmas party and award ceremony. Understand this year is not your normal year, and whether it would be safe to hold a gathering of that type at a restaurant, and whether a restaurant would allow a gathering of our size to even come in. So, but I do not want to let this. I don't want to just let it slide by without input from the club membership on the desires of what we could do. We would like to go forward with the annual awards, and we can, we can delay the presentation of the awards, and we could also always. Thing is, the other reason why we don't usually do the December meeting is the fourth Tuesday is probably going to come right in on top of Christmas, and probably won't have a large representation anyway. So looking for input from other board members, from members of the club on whether we should attempt to do a Christmas party and or whether we should try to do a December general meeting. So I'm going to open that up for discussion.
Dan, I'm sorry.
Okay, I heard two. I heard Pete. Pete, go ahead.
I make a motion that we just do away with the event for the night as far as going out to eat and stuff like that, and just replace it with an online Zoom awards presentation meeting. Not a regular business meeting, but just the awards presentation meeting.
Okay. Ray?
Well, you got a motion on the floor now, so I'll wait.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't have to be a motion. You could just bring that up for discussion.
Okay, if it's just discussion, then I will say the Augusta Club is not decided either. We have picked a date. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but we're looking towards a private venue instead of a restaurant to hold a potluck and do what we normally do, where we're not worried about breaking any laws or anything. That's our thinking, but we have not decided, just to throw it out there as input.
Okay. As I mentioned, we could probably push the decision to the November meeting, but then we would be, pretty short on planning time at that point. Any other thoughts? I suspect our membership may be divided on a public gathering.
Yeah, Dan, this is Bill. I would love to, and I think if we could do it outside and it would be 70 degrees, on a Saturday afternoon in a wide open field or something, I think that'd be great. But quite frankly, the trends are not real good right now, and some of the folks that think they know what they're talking about think it's going to get worse. So I would be surprised if you would find a venue that will accommodate a group of 20 to 25 people. I kind of like Pete's idea of, I think we should definitely recognize our members, and but we may have to do the in-person thing a little bit later down the line.
Okay. What I think I want to put a marker down on Pete's idea, and maybe bring, because that won't take very much planning at all to carry that out.
Hey, Dan.
Go ahead, Randall.
I may have a venue, especially if it's a weekday earlier in the week, and I'll have to look when I get back into town. But our venue is 4,000 square feet, and I think that's enough room to 20 to 30 people. So,
okay,
I'll see if it lines up with our normal meeting dates.
Okay. Okay. Here's what I will propose. Pursue Randall's option there. And maybe if it works out, we'll put a reservation on it, which it sounds like we might be able to do at low or no cost. Is that correct, Randall?
Sorry, yes. So yeah, it would be no cost, because cost is about $4,000 plus tax for the space. So I would definitely be willing to donate it to the club, as I have in the past.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. So we could probably once we get confirmation of who would attend, we could do I don't know about either catered or just have some delivery food, pizzas or something brought in if anybody's interested. So
yeah, we could do potluck, or we can do we definitely have less expensive catering options, and we could do something, but I'll get with you offline about that.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if there's any way that we'd be able to go ahead and put up an iPad and Zoom, for those folks who are needing to go ahead and stay highly socially distanced, it might be a good idea to have the proceedings on Zoom available for people who can't go.
That's a really good idea. Randall, would we have internet access out of there? Probably have LTE out of there anyway.
Yeah, we have LTE is pretty limited on it's downtown, but we would have Wi-Fi, and we could even put up the big projector and hook a computer to it so people could feel like they're a part of it.
Okay. All right. So the next question, and Randall has exposed his weakness here on this. We would kind of need one or two folks to kind of organize that. Randall's kind of done a heavy lift with location. Is there anybody who might be willing to work with Randall on just a small amount of details. The board, of course, will do that as well.
What do you have in mind? This is Rick McKnight.
Hey, Rick. I think just, just kind of, well, the date may be dependent on what Randall has available with the facility, but then just kind of like a proposal to the club for November of, what we would do with that, how we would go about it, whether a potluck or.
Hey, Dan, Rachel KO4HLC raised her hand on Facebook and said she would help.
Okay.
And myself and Judy, we can go ahead and help in some form or fashion.
Okay. So I feel like I need to turn this in. We need to turn this into some sort of motion.
Hey, Dan,
Go ahead.
if you want to go with something where we do something like a field day food, I would be willing to cook for it.
Oh, wow. That's going to be a major attraction for everyone.
I mean, we could do the typical soup sandwich kind of thing and, just set up a budget like we do for field day and go from there.
Okay. Okay. So, to sort of capture this as a motion, it would be to have the aforementioned people explore the possibility of using the venue that Randall has to set up a holiday party and awards ceremony. And I guess we can vote the final details in on November, or announce the final details in November. I know that's not a very good proposal, but.
If you need a motion, I so move.
And I'll second.
Okay. Okay. We will clean up that wording in the minutes, but basically we're basically giving approval to plan a holiday party and award ceremony in December. I think we typically do the second week in December. Randall will work with you to see if that's available, and we'll adjust fire. We definitely want to avoid the week of Christmas, but we probably are pretty flexible, first or second week. That will replace our December general meeting, and we will look to have that streamed out, at least the awards ceremony part of it. Any further discussion on that?
Do you need a motion to cancel the December meeting?
We probably do need a motion to do that.
So move.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion on canceling the December meeting? And Pete was the second. Okay. Anyone opposed to canceling the December general meeting? My pen's giving out. Okay. And then I'll circle back around to the other one. We actually did have a motion and a second to plan a holiday party and awards ceremony based on venue availability, and we will make an announcement on or before the November meeting. Any discussion about that? Anyone opposed to that? Okay. Thank you for helping me through that one. Okay. And this one really probably just more of a general announcement, but we will go ahead and plan, since we don't have a December meeting, that we will go ahead and hold November's meeting online as well. And then that will give us the month of December. We will have a board meeting in January before the first meeting of the year. We will also have a new board in place during that time. So we will push to the new board to make the decision and to work out meetings. I got kind of a I don't know, positive email from Sean today at the EMA confirming that we could continue to use the EMA for ham radio testing, but I did not broach the subject of club meetings there in the evening. But we'll, like I say, we'll push that. Any comments or concerns about in-person meetings? Okay. I do not have any other business. That was all old business that we've continued forward, although we did move ahead.
Dan?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Just on the meeting, it's a very, very tough call. You know, it's probably better to err on the side of caution. They don't, you know, everybody has lots of different information, and some of it's really solid. Others, you know, are just repeating rumors. But you know, it's the kind of thing that a lot of people our age, you know, when I say our age, I'm talking like maybe 50 or 60 and older. You know, one way or another, there's something wrong with us. You know, not that that's a big deal and it keeps us from doing a lot of things. But so I applaud you if you err on the side of caution. On the other hand, you know, we are trying to get back to normal to some degree.
Yeah.
And that Savannah, the Savannah swap meet, you know, that was a pretty good example. I mean, I wore my mask the whole time I was there. I wasn't going to take it off. You know, they had it. And I don't know that anybody's come down with anything. Of course, it's too soon to tell. And I also am kind of curious, and I might ask around at our next meeting, if anybody has symptoms from who attended the one at, you know, in South Augusta, the Amateur Radio Club of Augusta. But in any case, that's my 2 cents on it. And I thought I'd let you know that I think everybody's doing a good job by kind of erring on the side of caution.
Okay. Yep. I would agree with that. We're really just kind of taking this month by month and kind of going with what we know at any given time. Also, you know, we have discussed a number of times, again, this will be something that falls on the next board to make a decision about. But when we do resume in-person meetings, to have the ability to record and stream those meetings for people who don't feel comfortable. You know, we'll have some details to work out about, you know, how they can participate in. I mean, we may run Zoom out of the same meeting that we're doing live, but you know, details to be worked out, and the devil's in the details, right? Any other new business or anything that anybody wants to bring to the club's attention before we move forward?
Dan, we did have one other individual join us on the Facebook live page, Eric KC9ASC.
Okay.
Wanted to recognize him.
Okay, Eric, thank you for joining the meeting tonight. I'm happy that the Facebook gremlin didn't attack us again this month, and that we're able to actually stream it. Okay, just a couple of things that I want to mention, and then we'll make way for the presentation, which I'm waiting for, and I know everybody else is. I just want to mention again, pushed another email out about a week ago. I have only received one nomination for these 2 awards, not one each, but one total. So we do want the opportunity to recognize folks. So we don't need paragraphs. We don't need long things. We would like a few bullet points of why the person you're nominating exemplifies these qualifications and qualities. But like I said, doesn't have to be fancy writing, just a few bullets. we plan to close it on November 1st. I may extend that by a week or so to give everybody a chance. Very minimal qualifications: member in good standing and an amateur radio license. You see the qualifications we look for. The rookie of the year, we're looking for someone licensed 3 years or less as of November 1st. The Thomas Coley Ham of the Year can be anyone in the club that you would like to nominate. Once we have all the nominations, the board of directors will hold a vote. Want to kind of point out that members of the current board are not eligible to receive the award due to conflict of interest concerns there, obviously. But we will meet. We score the nominations independently. Then I combine those. If we have a tie, we will hold a tie-breaking vote for them. But anyway, please look at the email. Please nominate someone so that we actually have something to present at our awards ceremony in December. All right. I want to, before I start this, I want to thank Stephen, Bill, and Randall for taking on the task of being the nominations committee for our board of directors election this year. It's not an easy thing. I know, I've done it before. You have to make contact with everybody and really try to use your powers of persuasion on folks who might be on the edge but need a little bit of convincing. And so just want to talk about what we currently, where we're currently at with the nominations. We will be voting at the next club meeting in November. We will also be sending an email out to everyone who's a current club member 2 weeks prior, maybe sooner, at least 2 weeks prior, maybe by the end of this week, with who the nominees will be for the vote in November. In addition, we've already received some. They have people aligned against each position who are candidates, but we will accept nominations from the floor for any position during this meeting tonight. You can nominate yourself. You can nominate someone else. If someone is nominated, they must confirm in person if they're here at this meeting, or in writing if they're not present tonight. So those are kind of the goals. I will, Bill, Randall, or Stephen, anything to add on that?
I don't have anything, Dan, other than just to thank Stephen and Randall for their support and their willingness to reach out and shake the trees and scramble the bushes a little bit to try to get folks to volunteer. I think it's important that we have a good, strong board of directors to continue to guide the club. So appreciate those guys doing a lot of the work.
You're right. Okay, so before we move on to nominations, I'm just going to kind of throw this out here for everybody for their perusal. First nomination that's being thrown out tonight.
You're killing me.
Yeah, that nomination was thrown out earlier, and it was passed right back very quickly.
Shouldn't there be fine print about I approve this message or something like that?
Well, this might be by the committee to not have the same president in the next board, but it's hard to say. Anyway, like Randall said, we already got our answer. I tried, but anyway, this is the slate that the nominations committee. These are all the people whose arms were twisted. They were threatened, cajoled, sometimes bribed. I believe that there might be a Baofeng antenna that someone owes me, which I will collect on. But anyway, we're not voting tonight. This is just the slate that will be presented at the November meeting. But in all seriousness, if there are other nominations, I've said it many times, contested board positions are a healthy thing. So if anyone wants to make a nomination or nominate themselves, we will stand by and accept those. And the silence is deafening. Okay. An email will probably go out here in the next few days to notify everyone in the club, including those who did not attend tonight, who will be on the slate, and then we will do the vote, which will probably, if we do it the way we've done in the past, to vote the entire slate instead of individually into the board. Thanks again, Bill, Randall, and Stephen. Okay, really quickly, are there any committee updates? I won't call them individually, but if anyone has an update that they would like to make from one of the committees. We're getting close, Pete.
I have one from the repeater committee.
Yes, sir.
We had an issue with the UHF that is in Pollard's Corner, and we simply switched to the backup, and it's on the backup currently.
Okay. Prognosis for recovery there?
It shouldn't be an issue to get the other unit going. Actually, the units are identical. I don't know why I call them backups, because they're identical, and the backup and the main is exactly alike. So, but it's just a receiver issue that it lost sensitivity, and just a matter of replacing that receiver, and we have lots of spares.
Okay. Devon, do you want to put out your monthly call on the net control operators?
Well, we're doing pretty good, and one of the good things about our list or schedule is we have alternates, and so we did have one that had to travel last night, and we had a backup, so that's always good. Folks can jump on and do it, but if needed, all of them might be out, and so it might not be a net on Mondays. But if you hear there's no net at 7:30 p.m., the preamble is right there. Jump on in and get it started. But we need some new hams and folks on there that want to get their feet wet. And please come on, and we'll get you set up. And it's not that bad. But that's all I got, Dan.
Thanks, Devon. Jim, there's usually a cajole by you during this too.
I'm sorry, what was that, Dan?
Yeah, there's usually a little poke by you about net control operators too.
Well, just to follow up to Devon, so I was Stephen's backup last night, and he definitely contacted me, and I was ready to go. But as it turned out, I had to tag Dan because Jim and I were both tied up at AU and couldn't make it back in time. So when you take out Stephen traveling and Jim and I both out, that's like 60% of our net controllers. So please, please, please. Yeah, we need to cajole because, yeah, we have a backup, but we definitely went to the backup and we've shuffled some dates, but, definitely just adding a little more depth. It's not hard. I've done it. My kid has done it. It's definitely doable, but even if you just try it once to see if you like it, that would take off some of the pressure from the few that are on there.
I totally agree. We went to the fifth string last night, and it did not fail. So competence is not necessarily a qualification for the net. Just really reading and copying down call signs. If you can do that, you got it. Okay, I think we covered field day, IT and VE. Rusty and Shannon are both not attending this evening. I think there might be a birthday in the family from what I heard. So they're they're doing some celebrating. Okay. Wow. I almost said Pete, but that's not correct here. Susan, I'll get this down eventually. Anything
Okay.
from Mary's?
No, just wanted to remind anybody, any of our new folks that are interested in participating, shoot me a note. There's a link out there on the website, and shoot me a note. And then there is an exercise November 14th, a nationwide Red Cross emergency communications drill, and it's going to be a WinLink specific event. So I'll be sending some information out to folks on that in the next few days on that. So that's all I have.
I have a question sort of related to that on the WinLink side of it. I have a radio that'll do packet, Kenwood radio. Is there a repeater in the area that can do WinLink over VHF? If anybody, just kind of throwing that out to anybody. Okay. All right, Devon, Amron.
We're adding new members every couple of weeks in the area, folks. Up on our Simplex net has grown, our footprint has grown, and it doesn't require you to be a member of Amron. And that is at 8:30 every Monday evening on the 146.420 megahertz, no PL tone. And we're trying to increase that relay operation in our footprint, and that's without the repeater. So we're relaying all the way from where I'm located in Johnston to some folks over here, all the way to Burke County without repeaters. So that's the highlight for the month. We have another FTX next month. One of the cool factors for most of the Amron operators in the area is we're getting on DMR. And we have our own talk channel, and it's an alternate to some of our other grid up communications that got jammed up in some of the last hurricanes. So we're using that as an alternate. So that's the highlight for this month. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Devon. Appreciate that. Always appreciate both Aries and Amron, and the club really enjoys supporting both those organizations. All right, before we move on to the highlight of the evening, took a little longer than I expected. Samantha, do you want to go over the motions and assignments, or would you like me to do that?
I'm gonna go ahead and let you do it because I could not get my other computer to send over the minutes, so I have not gotten them down.
Okay. Good news is the meeting is recorded, so we'll be able to capture them. All right, I will attempt to decipher through my really bad writing. So for our motions and votes tonight, we accepted Derek McClure, KC4 ELO, into club membership. We accepted the treasurer's report. We accepted the secretary's report. We voted to have a joint winter field day with ARCCC and ARCA. David and Casper will lead the way on that. We voted to cancel the December. Casper's just joining us. I should have given him a couple more assignments, but that's okay. We voted to cancel the December general meeting, and then we will replace that with an awards presentation and possibly a potluck dinner. Rachel, Rick, Judy, and Randall will be kind of leading that effort up. Did I miss anything, or did I assign somebody something they didn't sign up for? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. As always, we're lucky tonight in that we're going to have a presentation thanks to Pete. We're looking for ideas. We're looking for people to make presentations, and he's going to show you how it's done here in just a second. So Pete, I'm going to switch over to your slides, and I'm going to mute my mic and let you take over. And just tell me when you're ready to flip. You're muted, Pete.
Yep, I'm ready as long as you can hear me flip the slide. Say flip the slide. Okay, you ready? Okay, I guess I'm on live. Tonight's presentation is about the top band, 160 meters. That's a band that's available to extra class, advanced class, and general class. General class, you have the entire band. For those of you who are looking to upgrade from technician up to general class, this is a band where you have the whole enchilada, the whole 2 megahertz. But there's not a whole lot of hams that get up there on 160 meters. And I'll give you a hint why. 160 meters equals 524 feet. so that says a lot in itself. Okay, next slide. Okay, a little bit of history on 160 meter band. This is one of the oldest ham bands that are out there. It started off back in the days of spout gap transmitters and so forth. And at first, the hams had anywhere from 1.5 megahertz to a full 2 megahertz. But then along came the AM broadcast band. And if you go up there on 160 meters and you go down just a little bit further, you find the top end of the AM broadcast band right down there. So eventually, due to other services that came into effect, the 160 meter band was eventually narrowed down to the current 1.8 to 2.0. But in between there was even some more severe restrictions on the 160 meter band. LORAN, that's a type of a navigational system, a radio navigational system used primarily by ships and aircraft. We shared, as amateur radio operators, we shared that band with those services. And from 1942 until 1984, there were very severe restrictions on the power levels that we at hams could operate and the frequency restrictions were rather severe. You can see where it was 1.8 to 1.825. Not much of a band. 200 watts at the daytime, that wouldn't do anything, and 50 watts at night. Eventually, the GPS came along, LORAN went away, and nowadays we have the entire band back again, 1.8 to 2.0 megahertz, and we can use up to 1,500 watts of PEP output on that band. Next slide. So it's like any other band. It's got a band plan, and you can see that various sections of it are allotted to CW, digital modes, CW QRP, single sideband, QRP, experimental, and so forth. One of the biggest things that I want to point out is that using WSJTX, you can operate FT8 at 1.8 4.0. As you're going to see, that's a game changer as to what goes on that band. Next slide. Next one, Dave. There we go. Okay, what kind of activity are you going to find on a band? Well, it's like any other one. You find rag chewing, you find CW, DXing, experimenting, digital modes, especially FT8, and various nets. It's called the gentleman's band because it's a little less occupied, not as crowded, and therefore you don't find as many food fights on the band as you find on some of the other ones. So it's an easier band actually to operate in terms of you're not as crowded and it's not as competitive for frequencies and stuff like that. FT8, once again, is one of the dominant digital modes in ham radio period nowadays. It's making a lot of inroads into 160 meters and is changing what is generally thought of as a band that's really not worth getting on, but now it's changing that quite a bit. What's propagation like? And this is something I learned going through this whole thing. Propagation is kind of quirky on 160 meters. It's mostly a nighttime band. You don't find a whole lot of activity. You find a lot of noise on the band in the daytime. You don't find many people on there at all. You probably can't hear them. And that's because it's affected by normal ionospheric changes. So things that go on at 20 meters and 40 meters and 6 meters. Those same things go on 160 meters, but the Earth's magnetic field changes also impact what's going on 160 meters. And we take that for granted and we kind of discount that on all the other bands. But 160 meters is definitely affected by it. And I'll call your attention to the little area up there, the little slide that I have on upper right-hand corner. It shows the Earth and it shows this nice north and south pole. It shows a very nice uniform magnetic field going from south to north. And it looks like everything's real copacetic. And in reality, when you look down below that, you'll see what the Earth's magnetic flux really looks like. It's a bowl of spaghetti. And it's constantly changing, constantly. It changes faster than the ionospheric changes occur. And that's due to the molten core of iron in the center of the Earth, and the spin of the Earth, and the thickness of the Earth's crust. That lump of molten metal inside is just constantly moving around, getting closer. It's not a homogeneous mix of materials that make up the magnetic field. It's almost heterogeneous in some respects, I should say. So the Earth's magnetic field changes quite quickly and impacts 160 meter band. So you're fighting two things there. You can have real good ionospherics, but then the Earth's magnetic field is fighting it, and vice versa. You can have really bad ionospherics, but now the Earth's magnetic field is really helping out with propagation. So there's two things there that we have to account for. We really do not understand all the effects of the Earth's magnetic field. We understand more about ionospheric changes than we do about our own Earth's magnetic field. But we know that's changing. Okay, best DX. Well, it's basically DX occurs on 160 meters following the gray line propagation, which is basically around 2 hours just before and after sundown, and 2 hours just before and after sunup. So I'm not saying that nothing happens in between, but those are the two prime times for DX. So keep that in mind. It's gray line propagation. It's a winter band. It's not very useful in the summertime, and that's primarily because of all the lightning storms that occur around the Earth in the summertime. 160 meters, you can have a lightning storm 1,000 miles away and it sound like in your backyard on the radio. So you pick up a lot of noise on 160 meters in the summertime. So in the wintertime, when all that calms down, propagation is better because you just don't have as much noise level. And I'll show you some of those changes later. Do you have to have an amplifier? Well, yes and no. Used to be you pretty much needed an amp to get any kind of DX on 160 meters. But with FT8, that kind of changes the rules. That's a weak signal propagation mode. And you can work a lot of good DX with just 100 watts or less. You can even go QRP on 160 meters and have a good time. An amp always improves your capability, but it definitely is no longer necessary. Next slide. Okay, here's an example of a WhisperNet. I don't know if you're all familiar with that, but that's a program that you can use to figure out what propagation is doing. And you can use what they call the gray line mode on there. And if you look to the left, you'll see a bright region. Well, that's daytime propagation. And over to the left. And if you look over to the right, you'll see a darker screen there, and that's nighttime propagation. And you'll see some lines going from one station to another. That means that they're hearing and talking to one another. So you can see that there's actual propagation that occurs at night. If you look over on the left-hand side, the United States, and you see all those stations there, you don't see any lines between anybody. That's because nobody can hear anybody in the daytime. That's that noise level, and the D layer just absorbing most of your RF signal. Next slide. Okay, what kind of antenna do I need? That's the big thing. I said 160 meters is 524 feet. That's a big turnoff to most hams. They just automatically say, I can't put anything up on that band. And I did that for years. JC is now up on 160 meters. I got him to go up there here recently in the past week. He said the same thing. I don't have room for an antenna for that. And I thought the same thing. And then I got a 5-band DXCC. And that's 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, all those bands there. And in 80 meters, I could put up an antenna, barely. And I thought, there's no way I could put up 160 meters. But then I said, I'd really like to do something up there because I don't think I'll ever get a 6-band DXCC, a 6-meter band DXCC. So I said, wonder if I could do 160. And so I started to research it a little bit more and to see if it was even possible. I had a good 80-meter antenna up, and I was wondering, can I modify that 80-meter antenna and make a 160-meter antenna? So that started my quest. And what I learned was, one thing is that vertical type antennas rule on 160 meters. If you're gonna think about even getting up on that band, think of a vertical. Now a quarter wave vertical is no longer 524 feet. It's only about 130 feet. And you go, well, shoot, I can't put a vertical 130 feet here. Well, you don't have to. There's ways to still get a vertical and not have to go up straight 130 feet. So we'll talk about that a little bit further down the street. So 66% of the top banders, or those up on there on 160 meters, 66% use some form of a vertical antenna. And that could be a dedicated vertical. Some guys are lucky enough to be able to put an antenna up 130 foot tall. They got a 150 foot tower. And they just put a vertical 160 meter antenna right alongside that, supported by the tower. Most of us can't do that. Inverted Ls, we can do that. And I'll show you how that's probably the simplest and the easiest method. You can use a T antenna. You can use shunt fed towers. You can use vertical antennas that are less than 130 feet. You can use 43-foot antennas fed with an and a lot of those will tune 160 meters. The key thing I want to say is that vertical antennas rule, but any antenna is better than no antenna on 160 meters. If you have a vertical antenna, one of the problems with the verticals, everybody knows, is they're kind of noisy. So for receive, they may not be as good. So you may want to think about having a separate receive antenna. You can use beverage antennas. Those are the predominant type, but those are very long, very lengthy. They can be on the ground. They don't have to be very high, but they're long. So you need a big piece of property to put a beverage out there. You can use flag antennas. They take a big piece of property. You can use magnetic loops. And I'll show you one that I'm using. I have a little Wellbrook magnetic loop, and it's only 1 meter in diameter. That's only 3.3 feet across. So, and it works quite well on 160 meters. So there's different types of antennas that you can use for receive. You can use low dipoles. You can use arrays of vertical and so forth. So a receive antenna that has low noise capability improves your chances of getting some DX on 160 meters. Next slide. So here's some key antenna considerations to think about for 160 meters. The height of dipoles, not only are they long, they have to be about 120 feet in the air, or you've got a cloud warmer. What's a cloud warmer? It's NVIS, near vertical incident skyway. So yeah, you can have a dipole. It's probably going to be better on receive than it is on transmit, because it's going to transmit almost straight up. They're low noise, which makes them good for the receive aspect, but not so good for the DX. They also have a high takeoff angle. Especially if they're low to the ground, they're going to just go straight up. So you're not going to get much DX there at all. I'm not saying they won't work. You can still talk a few hundred miles away. So they will work. But if you're after the DX, they're not going to work as good. Full size loops are very low noise, but they're also cloud warmers. They shoot straight up. All right. So you're going to have a near incident, NVIS antenna, once again, near vertical incident sky range. Quarter wave verticals, they only have to be 130 feet long in length, or you can shorten them using coils, using traps. There's different methods to making that vertical shorter. However, when you do that, you're going to give up bandwidth. You're going to make it very narrow in bandwidth. So think of that. But once again, any antenna is better than no antenna. If you're not on 160, there's a way to get on it. If all you want to operate is FT8, hey, put a coil in there and make it a shorter antenna. So your vertical, quarter wave vertical can be a full-size vertical, or it can be a modified inverted L or a T configuration. We'll show some more of those. Well, the problem with verticals are noisy. They need radials or counterpoise to counter the ground losses. How many radios do you need? You need a minimum about 16, ideal about 32. Longer is better, but they shouldn't be any longer than the height of your vertical. If your vertical is an inverted L, it goes up 25 feet and then it goes over 100 feet. You don't need your radios to be much longer than 25 feet because the vertical portion is the only portion that's going to transmit. Horizontal portion is just going to be there to tune. So keep that in mind. You don't have to have tuned radios. They don't have to be the full quarter wavelength long on the ground. 16 130 foot antenna wires on the ground or radios on the ground, that'd be a lot of money to spend there. So keep that in mind. They don't have to be tuned. They should not be tuned if they're on the ground. It's a waste of money. But some hams don't understand that. Some hams figure they have to have a quarter wave vertical. I should say a quarter wave radial on the ground. You don't need that. You can use a lot of short radials instead of long ones if you don't have the room for the long radials. Elevated radials, if you want to use an elevated radio, sometimes they're just called a counterpoise. You only need 2 of those to be very effective, but they have to be tuned. They have to be the 130 feet long. They should be symmetrical, but in order to be effective on 160 meters, they have to be greater than 16 feet up in the air. Actually, they recommend over 25 feet. So some people can't even put a dipole up in the air 25 feet, let alone 2 elevated radials, 130 feet long each. So now you're talking, what, 260 feet long worth of radials for elevated radials. So that's not unless you have a big piece of property, that's not really a good way to go on 160 meters. A wide band tuner may be needed. Most of the tuners in the built-in radios, some of them will have difficulty trying to tune an antenna on 160 meters. So you may need a separate wideband tuner. I'm not saying that your built-in antenna tuner on your radio won't tune 160, but it may have some trouble with it, and you may have to tweak the antenna a little bit more. SWR can be very misleading on antennas that are lossy up at 160 meters. And I'll show you one of my experiments. And I thought, I've made the perfect antenna. And we'll see what happened with that. Okay, once again, any antenna is better than no antenna. I want to reiterate that. So if you want to play with it and experiment with it, do it. Next slide. Here's this antenna I was telling you about. I put an inverted L up. I had 1 elevated radio. It was 130 feet long. It was up at 6 feet. I ran it all along my fence. It wasn't in a straight line. It kind of ran around the property, but it was 130 feet long. And I fed this whole thing right there at the feed point with a 1-to-1 ballot. Look at this SWR that I had. Isn't that beautiful? It's resonant right at the middle of the band at 1.9 megahertz. And it only goes up to 2-to-1 SWR from end to end. I thought, this is wonderful. I knew better, but I liked what I was seeing on the SWR meter here. And I thought, wow, this is really great. What should have triggered me to realize that something was wrong here is this was a vertical and I had an SWR less than 1.5-to-1. That should not happen. And I'll tell you why. We'll go down here a little bit on another slide. So what I thought was a really great antenna, it made contacts. I got it out there and I was working FT8 and I was doing pretty good. I made some CW contacts on it and I made some sideband contacts on it. I thought, this is really great. So any antenna is better than no antenna, but this antenna, as it turns out, was very lossy, extremely lossy. And that's what that SWR and that super wide bandwidth was telling me, is that this is, most of the power is going into the ground and not up in the air. But some was obviously getting in the air. Next slide. Okay, here's that same antenna. I took the 1-to-1 balun out. I put 16 radios down. They were 25 foot long each. They're only going basically in one direction, northeast. I couldn't go in all directions, but the yard configuration. And now you can see where my lowest SWR got down to 1.57-to-1 at 1.822 megahertz. And that's a much more realistic antenna that I should have been seeing for a vertical. And this was an inverted L. So that was a much better SWR curve. It was more realistic. It wasn't as lossy because now I had 16 radios. These 16 radios were on the ground. They were not elevated, laying on the ground, only 25 feet long. Okay, an ideal vertical, the input impedance to an ideal vertical, quarter wave vertical, should be 36 ohms. That makes the SWR, the best SWR, 1.5-to-1. So the other antenna was making me feel real good, but it wasn't working that well. This antenna worked much better. I ran what they call I use Whisper and plotted this antenna against the other one, and the distance that I got with 1 watt on Whisper was much greater with this configuration than with the previous one. Next slide. Okay, so here's some antenna designs. There's all kinds of things that you can do. We talked about some of them. You can use an end fed with a balun. There's a lot of different, you can use an end fed with an un, that's an unbalanced to unbalanced transformer. You can see right next to it, going to the right, there's a inverted L configuration. The center fed portion is approximately 128 feet long. The more vertical you can make this thing, the better, but it only has to be 128 feet of wire. You can take it and you can bend it over. So it doesn't have to go 130 feet up in the air. It just has to be 130 feet total length of wire. The more vertical you can make it, the better off you are. You need radios on the ground. They do not have to be 130 feet each. I'll call your attention, go all the way to the antenna, all the way over to the right. It says modified 4BTV. That's a full band trap vertical made by Hustler. This is a configuration that a lot of hams will use. That vertical antenna is only about 25 feet long, 20 to 25 feet long. And what they'll do is they'll use some additional traps and wire that are parallel to the ground, if you will, going across the top makes it an inverted L, and they still have all the radials that you normally would have for your vertical, and that antenna will work fairly well on 160 meters. So there's different configurations you can do there to make an inverted L. Going back to the slide, to the picture right to the left of that, you'll see a 43-foot vertical with a 4-to-1 un. That 43-foot vertical will tune 160 meters quite well. And it's going to use, once again, you should have radials down there. They'll have to be about 43 feet long each. K4IE, Lewis uses an antenna like this. And it works well on 160 meters for him. So a 43-foot vertical will work quite well also. You can use an off-center fed dipole, but any dipole you use needs to be up greater than 120 feet or close to 120 feet to get to stop it from being an NVIS antenna. A loop antenna, there's a loop antenna right next to that. That's 524 feet of wire going between 4 posts fed with ladder line. That's a cloud warmer on 160 meters. It'll work. You can make it 50 feet in the air. The higher you make it, the better it is, but it's still pretty much going to shoot straight up and have a very high takeoff angle. You can use loaded verticals. That's where you're using a coil to actually decrease the physical length of the antenna. You can use short band dipoles. There's an example of one right next to that loaded vertical. You can use the Cobra antenna. That's all the way down there, bottom left. And that's taken the amount of wire you need, the 200, it's a dipole antenna, so you need 262 feet total length, but you can take that total length and you can kind of wrap it around itself and make it only like 140 feet long. Physically, so what you're doing there is you're just kind of folding the wire back and forth. Yes.
Quick question about that Cobra. I like that design. It would fit in my attic, not necessarily for 160, but what is the effect, the actual radiation effect that you get from using the same amount of wire, but in, a folded kind of condition?
It's like a folded dipole, so it's broadbanded, but it has a very high takeoff angle, and it's subject to all the same things as far as whether it's high enough or not. I want you to take a look at that Cobra and look down at the feed line. See where it says the feed line has to be 75 to 120 feet long. That tells you something. That thing's got to be way up in the air to be effective. So you can use that configuration for attic antennas also, but I wouldn't recommend it for 160 meters because you're not going to be able to do anything with that feed line. You can use a half a delta loop. You can use slopers, and I'll draw your attention all the way over to the bottom right-hand side. There's a loop antenna. That loop is, it's hard to see how big that particular loop is, but that loop is, that'll fit in your backyard. It's probably 8 foot in diameter. And it's 2 loops. It's actually one coiled up loop. And it's fed with at a center point down there. So loop antennas will also work, but they are very, very narrow band antennas, but they will work and they'll work quite well. We'll talk about the loop more as a receive antenna than as a transmit. So what's the bottom line? Verticals rule on 160. If you're going to try and put some kind of an antenna up, put some kind of a vertical up, because 66% of the hams on 160 are using vertical antennas. If you're using a horizontally polarized antenna, you're already eliminating a good 60% of the stations because you're not going to be polarized the same as as most of the hams. Yard size limits the type of antenna you can have. HOAs definitely can limit what you can do there. And verticals rule, any antenna is always better than no antenna. So don't let that, don't be, what do I want to say? Don't be disappointed. Next slide. The unknown. This is a very unsung hero for building a vertical antenna for either T configuration or an L configuration. Ballon Design makes one that you can use. You can buy an unknown that's a 4-to-1 or a 9-to-1. It's both. It's the way it's wound. It depends upon where you tap it off. And you can see there recommended wire lengths for a 9-to-1 ratio antenna using a 9-to-1 coverage of 160 meters through 10 meters. You can see all those various lengths of wire that you can use to make an inverted L. You can go as low as 53 feet, as long as 124 feet, 146 feet, and so on. So there are various lengths of wire. Obviously, the longer is better, but that gives you some good capability depending upon your lot size. There's some alternative lengths there that will work also. The 4-to-1 notice I'm not saying ballon, I'm saying that's unbalanced, unbalanced. They're wound different than ballons. They work mostly with verticals, and you put the ballon, you put that on at the low, you put it at the feed point, low to the ground. The 4-to-1 will also work. They're non-resonant antennas, and they'll work with most of those same lengths up there. So you have to play around with them and see which works best for you. I have tried this configuration, and I have also had very good results and made some good contacts DX-wise. The one thing about the unknown is you will need a tuner. Usually it has to be a wideband tuner, and you still need radials. You have to put some radials up down on the ground for this also. So there's an example. There's a picture down at the bottom right, and it shows you a 4-to-1 unknown or 9-to-1 unknown hooked up to the antenna, and there's your radio plate with a bunch of radials down there with a coax coming in on the right-hand side, and you could make an inverted L out of that and get on 160 meters. Next slide. So I talked about noise level, and on this slide, what I want to show you is an inverted L with 16 radios on the ground. I want you to notice that noise level was about close to minus 100 dB. That's a lot of noise. That's where the the RF gain cranked down to zero gain, I should say, not at zero, but very little gain on the antenna. And that noise level was quite high. You can see the waterfall display there. You can see where it's kind of yellowish. You can see some noise in there in some of the straight lines. That inverted L with 16 radials was working. You can see signals in there, but it was quite noisy. And the next slide. Go to the next slide after that. We'll come back to this one. Here's a Wellbrook active loop receive antenna. Okay, that's that little loop I was telling you about. It's 1 meter in diameter. It's an active antenna. You don't transmit with this at all. You'll kill it if you put 1 watt into it. You'll fry it. But look at that noise level. Noise level, this was the same. This image was taken at the same time. I just switched A to B. I switched from the transmit antenna over to my receive antenna. And you can see there's much less noise on the waterfall. The loop antenna noise level was down to like almost a minus 121 dB. So that's very low by all considerations. So there's the difference of having that transmit antenna is great for transmitting, not so good for receiving, but that little loop was doing really great on receive. So that's something to consider, having a separate transmitter and having a separate receive antenna. Remember what I said, the dipole, even though it's low to the ground, may work really well for receive, won't be good for transmit, but may do quite well for receive on 160 meters. So consider putting up 2 antennas. Go back to the slide just before that. So here's the receive antenna considerations. They're not necessary, but they certainly will help, and they can really improve reception on 160 meters. The beverage antenna is the best. Problem with the beverage antenna is you need a lot of real estate. Just a full wavelength beverage antenna is going to be 524 feet long on 160 meters. You don't want to shorten these things. The longer you make a beverage antenna, the better it's going to be. So from 1 to 3 wavelengths. Well, now you need to get your neighbor's neighbor, and your neighbor's neighbor, and maybe the county's permission to go across the street or something like that to string out an antenna. They are very low noise. They're very directional. They work wonderful, but unless you have a lot of property, I would not recommend trying to even put one of these down. But some of you out there may have a really big piece of property and you can put a beverage out there. Some beverages can lay right on top of the ground and work quite well. Active loop antennas, that's that antenna I was talking about that I have. It's a 1 meter in diameter antenna. MFJ makes these. Precision Antennas makes these. There's all kinds of people make loop antennas. This is not a transmit antenna. This is just a receive antenna. You can probably make your own. They work quite well. They're active. In other words, they have a preamplifier built into them. All right. You can use a band. You can use a dipole from another band. You can use your 80 meter dipole and receive 160 meter signals. They'll work fairly well. It'll cut down a lot of noise. If you can have a dipole for 160 meters, if you can put one up that's 260 feet long, 262 feet long, or a shortened version of it, you'll cut down the noise because it's a dipole. You may not want to transmit with it because takeoff angle will be too high, but it may work quite well for receive. Receive antennas are usually directive. If all you have is your transmit antenna, that's what you use. Any antenna is better than no antenna. I want to keep stressing that. So you can see where some of all the way down in the bottom right-hand corner, all the way over there, you can see where somebody's got an array antenna up there. And each one of those is probably a good 60 foot tall and so forth and directional. And there's more money tied up into that than I care to put into it. So it depends upon what you want to do with 160 meters. Next slide. We did that. Okay, here we go. Here's some things to help you with trying to get on 160 meters. One thing I recommend is use Whisper. Whisper will help you check out the propagation of your antenna, both for transmit and receive. You can go on Whisper. What I was doing is I'd make a configuration. I'd connect it up to Whisper, and I would transmit during the evening, go to bed. It transmits maybe 10% of the time. Throws a signal out there. Get up in the morning, you go into WhisperNet, and you say, who could hear me? You say, wow, this guy all the way down New Zealand heard me, and I was only putting out a half a watt. Well, you can look there and you can say, well, the only place that heard me was Alabama. And I was putting out 5 watts. You probably don't have a good antenna, or propagation was really lousy. So WhisperNet and Whisper Mode are really good tools to use to check out what you've made for an antenna and how well it's going to perform. You can use the DX spotters any time of the day to go figure out what's going on for what frequencies are in use on 160 meters and what modes are people on 160 meters. I find the FT8 is a dominant mode. There's a lot of rag chewing that goes on single sideband in the evenings. But if you're after DX, I'd go to FT8. And there's a lot of CW that goes on at 160 meters also. Listen with what you have. Go look at the band, try it. I mean, listen to it with your 80 meter antenna. See if you're even interested on getting on the band. I had a different incentive to get onto the band, and I'm trying to encourage others to get on 160 meters, mainly because it's wide open. There's not a whole lot of folks up there. It's really a nice, clean band to operate on. You can Google 160 meter operation or 160 meter antenna design, and there's more information out there than you can possibly read, I promise. Put something up and try it out. Go for one of these, get you an un-un, build an un-un. Un-uns are not hard to make. There's just coils of wire around some ferrite cores with, what do you call it? 239 connector and so forth. You can build your own un-uns. You don't have to spend $100 or $200 or whatever. You can build your own, and that's a lot of fun too. And there's a whole bunch of instructions out there on how to build an un-un or a ballon for 160 meter operation. I used K9YC.com's website. His program, he has a website there, and he's got a presentation on it. Says getting on 160 meters from a small lot. Took a lot of inspiration from that. Captured a lot of his material, so I want to give him credit. I didn't do this all by myself. What I shared with you was mostly my experience and some of the things that I learned along the way with 160 meters. Next slide. Here's an example of WhisperNet. Once again, all the way over to the left, you can see daytime propagation. Nothing happening there. No lines going between stations. You look at the over to the right, you see where lines are going, yellow lines or white lines or red lines and so forth. That tells you that things are happening between stations. That's because it's nighttime. This was over a 24-hour period. I took this snapshot at one specific time. Next slide. This was me at night. And I had done, I think this was about a 3 or 4 hour whisper propagation, what do you call it? Propagation report on 160 meters for about a 3 hour period. And you can see that I was hearing a lot of stations, and a lot of stations heard me. And so that tells you, every place you see a line, there was a connection between us. So we could either transmit to each other or we could hear each other. And as the night progressed, I got all the way over into New Zealand and over into Asia, and got some propagation up into Iceland and over into Europe also. So as the evening goes on, the propagation picks up. Once again, it's mostly gray line propagation. Next slide. There's an example of DX heat. You can configure it so it only monitors 160 meters, and you can see who is talking to who or who can hear who, and exactly, you can tell the mode that they're using by looking at the frequency. If it's 1840, 1840, that means they're FT8. If there's something less than that, they're a CW. And if they're above that, they're single sideband or AM. Next slide. This is whisper mode. I said that, no, this is FT8 mode, excuse me. And I said that in the evening around sundown, when the sun's just going down, and a little after sundown, the DX shows up. It starts to show up mainly from Europe. As you go through the night, you get more Europe, and then it starts to shift, and you go to the west. And by morning, you're hearing Pacific stations coming in there. And so you can see here where Belgium showed up in the evening, and that was about 23:44 on September 23rd. So the propagation is better in the wintertime, December's the best month. So if you want to get on and see what you can do and see how many states you can work, how many countries you can work, December is the real good month to do it. So now's the time to start throwing something up in the air and see if you can get it to work. Next slide. Questions?
Yeah, Pete, this is Bill. Just a quick question. You know, I've got, I follow this guy on YouTube that's real big into infed halfways. And I've got an infed halfway, 80 through 10. And one of the things he suggested, and I've actually tried it, is to bypass the transformer so that you actually only have, you're basically going to have a quarter wave infed dipole for, not a dipole, but an infed wire for 160 meters. Now, okay, I had barely decent SWR, but it didn't work very well. Just wonder what you thought about that.
Bill, that's exactly what I'm using.
Ah, okay.
I've got a quarter wave NFED that I bypassed the 49-to-1 transformer on it. And I'm just feeding that straight with a piece of coax, center fed. It goes up 63 feet in the air, up into a pine tree, and then takes a prompt right-hand turn and goes out about 70 feet. So the vertical section is sloped at 63 feet. And I've got, what I did is I started putting more and more and more radials out until I achieved at least a 1.5-to-1 SWR. So the answer to that was put a bunch of radials on. They're just laying on the grass. I have to pick them up every week, mow the lawn, put them all back, string them all back out. But hey, I'm on there and I'm making really good contacts with it right now. That's an inverted L.
Hey, Pete, just more of an observation that, you know, I played around with this a little bit last year. I actually just, I have the same thing in 80 to 10, but I have it in a sloper where it's going from about 8 feet, where I have it fed up to about 60 feet up in a tree, just a regular 130 feet. My antenna tuner will begrudgingly match that. So I'm sure with 100 watts in, I might be getting QRP levels out of it. But just the observation is, you know, until you're on the air and playing with this, you never know what can happen because probably just kind of a fluke. It was either last year or year before last. I was on late in the evening and I see a station from Alaska come on there, KL7J. He was working a bunch of stations up in the Northwest, probably not a big haul for them. So I gave him a call and he came back and I had a QSO with him and he sent me a little chat over what is it, the FT8 ham apps thing, saying, I have no idea why or how that happened because it should not happen. We should not have been able to do 160 meter QSO between Georgia and Alaska. He's like theorizing that there was some Aurora thing or something that happened, but like it was just right place, right time because within 30 seconds after that, his signal was gone. So you just no substitute for getting something in the air and being on the radio because you just never know what might happen.
Yeah, that's the Earth's magnetic field.
Yep.
It does more, it impacts the propagation as much as the ionospherics. So most of us only pay attention to the ionospherics. We forget about because on 80 meters and above, the Earth's magnetic field doesn't really impact our signals.
Yep. So on that, that absolutely, you know, should be crap antenna for 160 meters. I have every state except Hawaii now on there, and probably about 30 DX. So you've kind of inspired me to get serious with a real antenna. So I can get that going. Really appreciate it. I just want to tell everybody out there that the slides are actually already posted up on the web page for anybody that needs to reference them. But I'll get out of here for more questions.
Any antenna is better than no antenna.
Pete, this is David.
Yes.
when you use the loop for receive and you said it's low noise, which is fine, but how much reduction in actual signal compared to using the vertical or the inverted L?
That's a good question, because on the loop, on the receiving loop, you're using magnetic field, you're using your H lines more than the E lines. So you will notice the difference. But the signal to noise ratio is actually better using the loop than it is on your on just the straight vertical using the E field. But sometimes the loss in gain between the E and the H lines, E lines work a little bit better. They give you a little bit better signal into your receiver. But the if your signal to noise is still good, you'll still hear that station. If you can't hear that weak station at all, go back to using the transmit antenna as your receive antenna.
Okay, thank you.
Same thing with beverages. You lose some signal strength on the beverage also, but your signal to noise ratio improves a bunch. Sounds like it. The end. Thanks.
Pete, thanks again for that was a great presentation. Like I said, I'm very inspired now, maybe to do a little antenna making to see what I can fit. I have a little bit of room, but the radials will probably be my technical challenge to work out here. But we'll do that. I want to put a plug here for anyone who has expertise on anything. I think highlight of our meetings is to actually do presentations. I mean, we have to do business, but the more we can do with presentations, if there's something you think would make a great presentation, but you don't know that you have the expertise to do it, just bring it to our attention, and we'll go and see if we can find somebody. So again, Pete, thanks a lot for that. That was an awesome presentation.
I got a quick question for Pete about the slides themselves. Are these your slides, Pete?
Yes, they are.
They are incredible. I've never seen anything like that. They're very, very detailed. Thank you for spending so much time putting them together.
I spent a few days doing that, thanks to PowerPoint.
Wow. I'm putting together a a collection of presentations for the Georgia section of ARRL. And, I'd like to get as many in there. I guess there was something about a link to these things. I think it was in the announcement for this video conference.
David, if you go to the club webpage, arccc.org. Oh gosh, well, actually, maybe I can just show you.
Okay, I think I've seen it actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look for the documents and then meeting minutes and presentations, there's a link. It's in PDF format.
Yeah, there's so many clubs. Well, I shouldn't say so many. There are a lot of clubs that have really great presentations, and this was one of them. I mean, but I think what I'm going to do for those situations is to just list the presentations that are on the website and then link to them, So anyway, thank you again, Pete. This was very, very high quality presentation.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed doing it.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting. I do want to, there was a note there on Facebook also thanking you, Pete, from, looks like Dale Keener. I'm going to go ahead and close the Facebook Live meeting. Thank you, folks, for joining us on Facebook. And I will go ahead and stop the recording too.